Have you ever watched someone remain perfectly calm in a situation that would leave most people shattered? What do they know that others don't? The highest form of power is to remain undisturbed by what disturbs others. Look around you. What do you see? A world of people constantly reacting, constantly disturbed, constantly at the mercy of circumstances they cannot control, their peace stolen by a mere word, their focus shattered by a simple notification, their day ruined by one unexpected event. But this disturbance, it is an illusion. Nothing outside of you has the power to disturb your inner state unless you give it that power. This truth has been known by masters throughout the ages, yet most forget it the moment life tests them. When the rain falls, does the mountain complain? When the wind blows, does the stone argue back? When lightning strikes, does the earth take offense? No, they remain as they are, undisturbed, unmoved, unshaken. You were born with this same capacity. Consider the child who cries when their toy is taken away, the adult who rages when cut off in traffic, the worker who despairs when criticized by their superior. They believe something external has created their suffering. They point outward saying, "This bothers me, that upsets me. They disturb my peace." But who is the true author of this disturbance? Look more closely at the moment between event and reaction. There in that space lies your freedom. There in that breath waits your power. Most never see it because they've been trained to react instantly, automatically, unconsciously. Your mind has been conditioned since birth. When this happens, feel that. When they do this, think that. The programming runs deep, inherited from parents, teachers, society. Each reaction strengthened through repetition until it feels like truth itself. Of course I'm angry. Wouldn't anyone be? This is the great deception. Nothing inherently disturbs you, nothing carries within it the power to control your mind. Events simply occur. Words are merely spoken. Actions simply happen. The disturbance comes afterward, created within through interpretation, judgment, meaning. The untrained mind cannot see this. It believes the hammer caused the pain, not the hand that wields it. It believes the words caused the hurt, not the meaning assigned to them. It believes circumstances determine state, not perception. But the trained observer knows better. Watch your responses when circumstances challenge you. What happens in your body? Tension arises, breath shortens, heart races. These physical reactions occur before conscious thought, triggering ancient survival mechanisms. You become a creature of instinct rather than wisdom. The warrior's path begins with this observation, not fighting against reactions but witnessing them, not suppressing emotion but understanding its nature. Not denying disturbance but seeing its true source. Most live their entire lives at the mercy of conditions, never realizing they hold the key to their own liberation. They believe peace must be found, created or earned through changing external reality. I'll be calm when this situation resolves. I'll be content when I achieve this goal. I'll be peaceful when others treat me better. This is backward thinking. Peace isn't awaiting you in some future perfect circumstance. It exists now, beneath the surface of reactivity, available the moment you stop feeding disturbance with your attention. Look at nature. The sky doesn't resist the clouds that pass through it. The ocean doesn't reject the storms that stir its surface. They allow all things to arise and pass, remaining what they fundamentally are regardless of temporary conditions. You are not your thoughts. You are not your emotions. You are not your circumstances. You are the awareness that witnesses all these things. This awareness remains untouched, undisturbed, unchanged, regardless of what moves through it. Sit in silence and observe this truth directly. What observes your thoughts? What witnesses your emotions? What remains when all else comes and goes? This unchanging presence is your true nature, the mountain beneath the changing weather of experience. Remember a time when you were completely absorbed in something, perhaps creating art, solving a problem, or simply walking in nature. In these moments, did you feel disturbed? No. You were aligned with your natural state of being. The commentary of the mind temporarily silenced. The divisions between self and experience momentarily dissolved. This is not some abstract spiritual concept. It is practical power. The leader who remains clear-headed in crisis. The parent who stays patient amid chaos. The individual who maintains purpose through challenge. They've discovered this truth: disturbance is optional. Consider two people facing the same difficult conversation. One anticipates it with anxiety, rehearsing worst-case scenarios, body tight with stress. The other approaches with curiosity, open to whatever unfolds, breath steady and deep. Same external event, entirely different experience. The first person lives as if circumstances control their inner state. The second understands that inner state determines how circumstances are experienced. This understanding changes everything. Your attention is the most valuable resource you possess. Where you place it determines what grows in the garden of your mind. Most scatter it carelessly, feeding whatever disturbance appears most demanding in the moment. A comment from a colleague, a message from a friend, a headline in the news. Each seeming to say, "React to me now, I am important, I deserve your peace." But what if you became selective? What if you stopped automatically giving your attention to whatever shouts loudest? What if you reclaimed the power to choose your focus regardless of circumstances? This is radical responsibility. No longer blaming others for your disturbance. No longer waiting for the world to change before you find peace. No longer believing that your state depends on anything outside yourself. The untrained mind resists this responsibility. It prefers to think, "I would be fine if only they would change. I would be peaceful if only this situation were different." This perspective feels true because it aligns with how most perceive reality, but it leaves you powerless, dependent on circumstances beyond your control. True power comes from realizing that while you cannot control every event, you absolutely can control your response, not through force or suppression, but through understanding and practice. The first practice is awareness. Simply noticing when disturbance arises, not judging it, not fighting it, not feeding it, just seeing it clearly. Irritation is present, anxiety is arising, fear is appearing. This simple act of naming creates space between you and the reaction. You are no longer identified with it, you are the awareness that sees it. The second practice is acceptance. Not resignation to negative circumstances, but recognition of what is already occurring. Fighting against reality, wishing things were different than they are in this moment, is the source of much suffering. Acceptance says, "This is happening now, I can work with this as it is." The third practice is conscious response. Once awareness has created space and acceptance has acknowledged reality, you can choose how to proceed, not from conditioned patterns, but from wisdom, not from emotional reactivity, but from clear seeing. This choice is your birthright. Consider the metaphor of the oak tree and the reed in a storm. The oak stands rigid, fighting against the wind, eventually breaking under pressure. The reed bends flexibly, accepting the force of the wind without resistance, returning to its natural position when the storm passes, which demonstrates greater strength. Flexibility is not weakness. Acceptance is not passivity. They are profound expressions of inner power. For thousands of years, warriors have known this truth. The fighter who tenses against a blow absorbs its full impact. The one who yields and redirects preserves their energy and gains advantage.
Physical combat simply makes visible what is true in all aspects of life minus resistance creates suffering, while skillful yielding creates opportunity.
Notice how much energy is wasted in disturbance, the mental replaying of offenses, the physical tension of anger, the emotional drain of anxiety. These states consume your life force, leaving little for what truly matters. The person who spends an hour bothered by a comment has lost that hour forever. Most people live constantly braced against life, muscles tight, mind vigilant, waiting for the next problem to defend against. They've forgotten how to release, how to trust, how to flow. They've mistaken tension for readiness and worry for preparation. True preparation comes not from anxious anticipation but from present moment awareness. The martial artist doesn't defeat an opponent by thinking about past defeats or future victories. They succeed through absolute presence, responding to what is actually happening rather than what they fear might happen. This quality of presence is available to you in every moment, not just in crisis. It is your natural state when the mind's unnecessary activity subsides. When you're fully engaged with what you're doing, might as whether cooking a meal, having a conversation, or completing a task. Disturbance cannot find purchase. It requires divided attention to take root. Remember, attention divided is power diminished. Attention unified is power multiplied. The paradox is that by ceasing to resist smaller disturbances, you develop the capacity to remain undisturbed by larger ones. The person who cannot tolerate a minor inconvenience without complaint will crumble under genuine hardship. The one who practices acceptance with life's small frustrations builds the muscle of equanimity that serves when true challenges arise. Every irritation offers training. Every frustration presents practice. Every disturbance delivers an opportunity to remember your true nature. The awareness that remains unchanged regardless of what moves through it. This doesn't mean suppressing genuine emotions or denying real problems. Quite the opposite. It means experiencing everything more fully but without being possessed by it. Sadness arises minus you feel completely. Honor its message, then allow it to pass. Anger appears, you acknowledge its energy, extract its wisdom, then release its grip. Most people do the reverse. They resist emotions they judge as negative, which only increases their power. They cling to emotions they judge as positive, creating dependency and fear of loss. Both approaches lead to disturbance. The alternative is allowing all states to arise and pass naturally without identification or resistance. Think of your mind as a vast sky. Thoughts and emotions are like clouds moving through it. Sometimes dark and turbulent, sometimes light and wispy. The untrained person believes they are the clouds, experiencing every change as a threat to identity. The trained observer knows they are the sky minus dark tinged by whatever weather passes through. This perspective transforms daily life. Traffic delays become opportunities to practice patience rather than triggers for frustration. Difficult people become teachers of compassion rather than sources of resentment. Unexpected changes become invitations to adaptability rather than reasons for resistance. Every master began as a novice. Every teacher started as a student. The path to remaining undisturbed amid life's challenges is walked one step at a time, one breath at a time, one moment at a time. Progress comes not from perfection but from practice. When you notice yourself becoming disturbed, don't add disturbance about being disturbed. Simply breathe, return to awareness. This is not failure but awakening minus the essential moment of remembering what you had temporarily forgotten. The world will continue to present challenges. People will act in ways you don't prefer. Circumstances will unfold differently than you expected. This is the nature of existence. The question is not whether these things will occur but who you will be when they do. Will you be thrown by every wind of circumstance, or will you remain grounded in your deeper nature? Will you react automatically from conditioning, or will you respond consciously from wisdom? Will you be controlled by external conditions, or will you be guided by internal clarity? These questions point to the central choice of human existence. Most never realize they have this choice. They believe their reactions are inevitable, their disturbances justified, their suffering necessary. They say anyone would feel this way, anyone would react this way. But the truth remains, nothing has the inherent power to disturb you, nothing can take your peace without your participation, nothing can control your state without your agreement. This understanding is the foundation of unshakable presence. The practices that develop this presence are simple but profound, bringing attention to the breath, observing thoughts without attachment, feeling sensations directly without the mind's commentary. These ancient techniques work because they align you with reality rather than concept, experience rather than interpretation. Through consistent practice, what once required effort becomes natural. The space between event and response widens, the attachment to particular outcomes loosens, the identification with mental states dissolves. You begin to experience life's movements without being moved by them. This is not indifference. It is not detachment from life, but engagement with a deeper dimension of being. From this foundation, your actions become more effective, not less. Your connections more authentic, not more distant. Your impact more meaningful, not more limited. Consider water. When disturbed, it becomes cloudy, its surface fragmented, its depth obscured. When still, it becomes clear, reflects perfectly, and reveals what lies beneath. Your mind operates by the same principle. Disturbance clouds perception, fragments attention, and obscures wisdom. Stillness brings clarity, reflection, and revelation. The ultimate paradox is this: to act powerfully in the world, you must be undisturbed by it. To care deeply about outcomes, you must be unattached to them. To love fully, you must not need anything from the beloved. These seeming contradictions resolve themselves in the experience of presence. Most seek control as the antidote to disturbance. If I could just make things go my way, I would be at peace. But control is an illusion that creates more disturbance, not less. True power comes from cultivating an inner state that remains stable, regardless of what can and cannot be controlled. True power comes from cultivating an inner state that remains stable, regardless of what can and cannot be controlled. This cultivation is not passive. It requires practice, discipline, and understanding. The path of inner mastery follows four essential pillars that transform the ordinary mind into an extraordinary instrument of consciousness. The first pillar is stillness. Without stillness, you cannot see clearly. Without stillness, you remain caught in reaction. Without stillness, you miss the gap between stimulus and response where freedom resides. Most people fear stillness. They fill every moment with noise, movement, stimulation. They check devices, consume information, seek distraction, anything to avoid confronting the unexamined contents of their own minds. This avoidance creates a life of perpetual reaction, where peace remains forever out of reach. Stillness practice begins with the body. Sit upright, spine aligned, shoulders relaxed. Place your hands in a position of rest. Close your eyes or lower your gaze. Already, you have sent a signal to your nervous system. I am not in danger. I need not react. I can be still. Then bring awareness to your breath. Not controlling it, not changing it. Simply observing its natural rhythm. Notice the sensation of air entering your nostrils. Feel your chest and abdomen expand and contract. Follow a complete cycle. Inhale, exhale, then another and another. Within minutes, perhaps seconds, the mind will wander. This is not failure. This is the practice.
Notice where attention has gone, minus a thought, a memory, a plan, then gently return to the breath. Each time you notice wandering and return, you strengthen the muscle of awareness. Each return is a moment of awakening. Most abandon stillness practice because they misunderstand its purpose. They believe the goal is to eliminate thoughts, achieve some special state, or feel a particular way. None of these are the point. The purpose is simply to witness the mind's movements without being moved by them, to create space between observation and identification. 20 minutes of stillness practice daily will transform your relationship with disturbance. What once triggered immediate reaction now unfolds more slowly, more visibly. You begin to see the components of reactivity, the thought, the emotion, the physical sensation, the impulse to act. Seeing clearly, you can choose differently. The second pillar is mindful movement.
Your body and mind are not separate systems, but one integrated whole. How you move affects how you think, how you carry yourself, influences how you feel. Most move unconsciously, habitually, their bodies, expressing and reinforcing their mental patterns. Watch someone in distress, minus shoulders hunched, breathing shallow, movements tense or fidgety. Their physical state both reflects and maintains their mental disturbance. Change the body and you change the mind. This understanding has been central to wisdom traditions for thousands of years. Practice moving with complete awareness, whether walking, stretching, or engaging in more formal practices like Tai Chi or yoga. Bring your full attention to the sensations of the body in motion. Feel the foot contacting the ground. Notice the shift of weight. Sense the interplay of stability and momentum. When thoughts arise, as they inevitably will, simply return attention to physical sensation. This creates a state of moving meditation, where the constant commentary of the mind gradually quiets. In this silence, disturbance cannot take root. Watch a tiger moving through tall grass, minus perfectly aligned, completely present, wasting no energy. This natural economy of attention and effort is your birthright as well. No division between doer and doing, no separation between awareness and action, no gap between intention and execution. Practice this quality of presence in ordinary activities. Washing dishes, preparing food, cleaning your space. These become opportunities for cultivation rather than mindless chores to rush through. The way you do anything is the way you do everything. Mindfulness in small matters builds capacity for presence in larger ones. The third pillar is conscious breathing. Your breath is the bridge between voluntary and involuntary, between conscious control and autonomous function. It responds instantly to mental states, quickening with anxiety, holding with fear, sighing with relief, yet can be deliberately regulated to influence those same states. Most breathe poorly, taking shallow chest breaths that trigger the sympathetic nervous system, the fight or flight response that underlies disturbance. They live perpetually in a mild state of physiological stress, unaware that their very breathing patterns keep them tense and reactive. The breath of mastery is different. It is deep, drawing air into the lower abdomen, rather than just the upper chest. It is slow, with extended exhales that activate the parasympathetic nervous system, the rest and digest response associated with calm and clarity. It is rhythmic, creating a foundation of stability amid changing circumstances. Practice conscious breathing throughout your day. When you notice tension or disturbance arising, immediately shift attention to the breath. Take 3 complete cycles, inhaling for a count of 4, holding briefly, exhaling for a count of 6, holding briefly. These few seconds interrupt the automatic pattern of reactivity and restore choice. In moments of intensity, whether confrontation, performance pressure, or emotional challenge, the breath becomes your anchor. While others are carried away by the currents of reactivity, you remain connected to this internal rhythm. This is not mystical, but neurological. The breath directly influences brain state. The ancient saying, "Where attention goes, energy flows," expresses a practical truth. By placing attention on the breath, you withdraw energy from disturbing thoughts and emotions. They may still arise, but without the fuel of your focus, they naturally dissipate rather than escalate. The fourth pillar is emotional alchemy. Emotions are energy in motion, neither positive nor negative in themselves. They carry information and influence action. The untrained person is ruled by emotional states, believing "I am angry" rather than anger is present. This identification creates suffering and perpetuates disturbance. The path of mastery is not suppression of emotion, which creates rigidity, nor indulgence of emotion, which creates volatility. It is transformation, the ability to experience emotional energy without being consumed by it, to extract its wisdom without enacting its impulses. Practice viewing emotions as weather patterns moving through the sky of awareness. Anger arises in you hot, energetic, pressing. Rather than acting from it or fighting against it, observe its sensations in the body. Where exactly do you feel it? What is its temperature, its texture, its movement? As you observe with neutral awareness, something remarkable happens. The emotion begins to shift, to transform. When sadness appears, treat it with the same curious attention, not wallowing in its story, not pushing it away, but meeting it directly as sensation. Heaviness in the chest, constriction in the throat, moisture in the eyes. Experienced this way, even difficult emotions become bearable, even valuable. Most people spend tremendous energy avoiding emotions they've judged as negative. This avoidance gives these states more power, not less. The willingness to feel everything fully, without resistance, actually creates resilience. You become like the mountain stream that purifies itself through movement, rather than the stagnant pond that grows toxic through containment. These four pillars, stillness, mindful movement, conscious breathing, and emotional alchemy, form the foundation of inner mastery. Though described separately, they function as one integrated system of practice. Stillness reveals the contents of mind. Movement integrates awareness into action. Breath regulates the nervous system. Emotional alchemy transforms reactive patterns into responsive wisdom. Through consistent practice, what begins as deliberate effort gradually becomes your natural state. The gap between stimulus and response widens from milliseconds to moments. The identification with thought and emotion loosens. The capacity to remain present amid challenge strengthens. Most seek shortcuts to inner mastery, wanting transformation without the demands of practice. They jump from technique to technique, teacher to teacher, tradition to tradition, always seeking but never finding the promised freedom from disturbance. They fail to understand that mastery comes not from accumulating knowledge, but from embodying principles through consistent application. The warrior understands this truth. Before attempting complex techniques, they perfect the fundamentals. Before engaging an opponent, they master themselves. Before seeking external victory, they establish internal order. This patience seems inefficient to the untrained eye but proves most effective in the long term. Your practice must become as natural as breathing, as consistent as the heartbeat. Not something you do occasionally when conditions permit, but something you are, something you live, moment by moment, day by day. The person who meditates for an hour
but lives reactively for 23, has not understood the path. Consider how you respond when someone speaks harshly to you. Without training, the reaction is automatic, neaking tension in the body, defensive thoughts, emotional flare, impulsive words. With training, you notice the initial physiological response, but before it cascades into speech and action, awareness intervenes. You breathe, you observe without identification, you respond from clarity rather than reactivity. This capacity determines the quality of your life more than any external factor. The person who reacts unconsciously to triggers creates unnecessary conflict, damages relationships, and lives in perpetual disturbance, regardless of circumstances. The one who responds consciously creates harmony, builds trust, and maintains inner stability even in challenging conditions. The practices that develop this capacity are not complex, but they demand consistency and sincerity. 10 minutes of half-hearted meditation produces less transformation than 1 minute of complete presence. An hour of mechanical movement yields less integration than a single step taken with full awareness. Quality of attention matters more than quantity of time. Begin where you are, with what you have. If sitting in stillness feels impossible, start with 2 minutes. If formal movement practice seems daunting, bring mindfulness to your next walk. If emotional patterns feel overwhelming, work with mild states before addressing intense ones. The path accommodates all starting points, requiring only honest effort and patient persistence. Remember that every master was once a beginner, every teacher once struggled with the same fundamentals that challenge you now. The difference lies not in talent or luck, but in commitment to practice, despite difficulty, despite distraction, despite the mind's resistance. Those who persist transform, those who stop remain the same. The obstacles you'll encounter are predictable. The mind will argue that practice is unnecessary, impractical, or ineffective. It will generate excuses about lack of time, energy, or ideal conditions. It will compare your experience unfavorably with others or with your own expectations. Recognize these as forms of resistance, not reasons to abandon practice.
Physical discomfort will arise during stillness, minus, an itch, restlessness. Emotional discomfort will appear during self-observation, boredom, irritation, sadness. These are not problems, but opportunities, invitations to deepen your capacity to be with experience without immediate reaction. As you practice non-reactivity with minor discomforts, you build capacity for equanimity with major challenges. Progress on this path is rarely linear. You will experience breakthroughs followed by setbacks, clarity followed by confusion, ease followed by struggle. This rhythm is natural and universal. The untrained mind expects constant improvement and becomes discouraged when reality follows its own pattern. The trained mind recognizes these cycles and continues practice regardless of apparent results. Some days, stillness will come easily. Your mind will settle, thoughts will quiet, awareness will feel spacious and clear. Other days, internal chaos will seem overwhelming. Your attention will scatter, thoughts will proliferate, emotions will surge. Both experiences are valuable. The calm states show what's possible. The chaotic states reveal what needs transformation. The essence of inner mastery is not achieving some perfect state, but developing the capacity to work skillfully with whatever state arises. The person who can sit with anxiety without becoming anxious about anxiety has learned something profound. The one who can experience anger without becoming angry about anger has taken a significant step toward freedom. This understanding liberates you from the endless pursuit of particular states of mind. Most people chase pleasant experiences and flee unpleasant ones, creating a life of perpetual seeking and avoiding. The path of mastery offers a different possibility: the capacity to be fully present with all experience, extracting its value without being defined by its quality. The practices that develop this capacity are both formal and informal. Formal practice, minus scheduled time specifically devoted to stillness, conscious movement, or breath work, builds the foundation of awareness. Informal practice, bringing mindful attention to ordinary activities and interactions, integrates this awareness into daily life. Both forms are essential. Without formal practice, awareness lacks depth and stability. Without informal practice, awareness remains separate from lived experience. Together they create a seamless flow of conscious presence that transforms your relationship with disturbance. Start each day with stillness practice. Before engagement with the world's demands, establish connection with your deeper nature. Even 10 minutes creates a foundation of awareness that influences everything that follows. As capacity increases, extend this time gradually without forcing or straining. Throughout the day, use transition moments as opportunities for informal practice. When moving from one activity to another, take 3 conscious breaths. Feel your feet contacting the ground. Notice the state of your mind. These micro-practices maintain continuity of awareness across changing circumstances. When challenging situations arise, as they inevitably will, apply the principles of practice immediately. Rather than being swept into reactivity, step back internally. Observe sensations in the body. Notice thoughts without believing or resisting them. Breathe consciously to regulate your nervous system. From this foundation of presence, choose your response. Most believe internal practice must be sacrificed in urgent or demanding circumstances. I don't have time to be mindful during a crisis. This misunderstands the purpose and power of practice. It is precisely during difficulty that these skills prove most valuable. The surgeon needs steadiness of hand most during complex procedures. The firefighter needs clarity of perception most amid smoke and chaos. The individual needs presence of mind most when circumstances test equanimity. Through continued practice, subtle shifts occur in your relationship with experience. What once seemed solid, fixed identity, rigid boundaries between self and other permanent characteristics of mind, reveals itself as fluid, dynamic, constantly changing. This insight doesn't diminish your functioning in the world, but enhances it, allowing greater flexibility and responsiveness. You begin to recognize that you are not your thoughts. You have thoughts, but they are events in awareness rather than definitive statements about reality. You are not your emotions. You experience emotions, but they are temporary energetic states rather than who you are. You are not your sensations. You feel sensations, but they rise and fall within a field of awareness that remains unchanged. This recognition is profoundly liberating. No longer identified with the changing contents of experience, you discover a dimension of being that remains undisturbed regardless of circumstance. This is not some abstract spiritual concept but a direct experience available through practice. The experience of being awareness itself rather than the limited self created by thought. From this foundation, spontaneous compassion arises. Seeing others caught in the grip of reactivity, you recognize their suffering because you've intimately known your own. Understanding how identification with thought creates disturbance, you naturally wish freedom for all beings. This compassion is not sentimental but clear-eyed, not weak but powerful. The untrained person believes compassion means agreeing with others' views or indulging their demands. The trained individual understands that true compassion sometimes requires standing firm, setting boundaries, or speaking difficult truth. What determines whether an action is compassionate is not its external form but the internal state from which it arises. Presence rather than reactivity, clarity rather than confusion. As inner mastery deepens, your impact on others changes without deliberate effort. The quality of your presence communicates more powerfully than words. Others sense, often unconsciously, the stability and clarity you embody. In tense situations, your non-reactivity has a calming effect. In confused circumstances, your clarity provides orientation. Without imposing or controlling, you influence the field of relationship through the simple fact of how you are. This influence extends beyond human interactions to all areas of life. Work performed from presence rather than pressure yields different results. Decisions made from clarity rather than urgency have different consequences. Even ordinary activities, eating, walking, conversing, acquire a different quality when engaged with full awareness rather than habitual automation. The paradox of inner mastery is that by focusing on the quality of your being rather than the outcome of your doing, you actually become more effective in action. The mind protests this approach, believing that constant vigilance, pressure, and stress are necessary for achievement. Experience reveals the opposite. Ethos, relaxed alertness, present focus, and internal quiet create conditions for optimal performance. Watch a master musician, a skilled surgeon, a great athlete at the peak of their abilities. You'll see this quality of relaxed precision, this marriage of complete presence and effortless action. Nothing wasted, nothing forced, nothing extraneous. This is not merely talent, but the fruit of practice. The cultivation of a mind that remains undisturbed, even during intense activity. You possess this same capacity. The same principles that govern mastery in specialized fields apply to the art of living itself. The same practices that develop skill in particular domains cultivate wisdom in all areas of experience. The same integration of awareness and action that characterizes excellence in work creates harmony in relationship, clarity in decision-making, peace in ordinary moments. The path unfolds before you, step by step, breath by breath, moment by moment. Not a journey to some distant destination, but an awakening to what has always been present. Not an achievement of something new, but a recognition of something fundamental. Not an escape from life's challenges, but a transformation in how they are met. Each time you choose presence over reaction, you strengthen this capacity. Each time you return attention to the present moment, you weaken the hold of disturbance. Each time you respond from clarity rather than conditioning, you express your true nature and invite others to recognize their own. This is the essence of inner mastery, not perfection but practice, not escape but engagement, not control but clarity. The undisturbed mind is not one that experiences no challenges, but one that meets all experience with the spaciousness of awareness, the steadiness of presence, the wisdom of non-identification. From this foundation, true power flows, not power over others, but power with reality, not domination but participation, not force but influence. This power operates according to different principles than those that govern egoic striving. It accomplishes without exhaustion, succeeds without attachment, transforms without resistance. This power operates according to different principles than those that govern egoic striving. It accomplishes without exhaustion, succeeds without attachment, transforms without resistance. Living from the center rather than the periphery of your being changes everything. When you operate from your true nature rather than your conditioned personality, life unfolds with remarkable effectiveness and unexpected grace. What does it mean to live from the center? Think of a spinning wheel. At the rim, movement is chaotic, constant, dizzying. At the center, Even as the wheel turns at great speed, there exists a point of perfect stillness. Most live their entire lives at the rim, wondering why existence feels so turbulent. The invitation is to find your place at the axis, modally engaged with life's movement, yet anchored in that which does not move. This center exists within you right now. It is not something to create, but something to recognize. Not something to achieve, but something to remember. It has been called by many names across traditions and time, minus the self, true nature, Buddha mind, Christ consciousness, Atman. These words point to the same reality, the dimension of your being that remains undisturbed, regardless of circumstance. How does this understanding translate into practical living? How does inner cultivation express itself in ordinary situations? Through 7 essential qualities that mark the centered life. The first quality is presence. Most people are perpetually elsewhere, mentally rehearsing future scenarios or rehashing past events. Their bodies occupy the present while their minds wander through time. This division creates suffering and ineffectiveness. Problems arise in the present, but cannot be solved from the past or future. Living from the center means bringing your full attention to what is actually happening now. When speaking with someone, you listen completely rather than planning your response. When working on a task, you engage wholeheartedly rather than rushing to completion. When resting, you rest entirely rather than filling the space with distraction. This quality of presence transforms every interaction. People sense when you are truly with them versus merely near them. They feel acknowledged, seen, respected. Not because you've done anything special, but because you've done the most fundamental thing. You've shown up completely. Presence brings clarity to challenging situations. Most confusion arises not from complex circumstances, but from divided attention. Trying to process what is happening while simultaneously worrying about what might happen or analyzing what has already occurred. When attention unifies in the present moment, solutions often become obvious, decisions clear, actions precise. The second quality is non-reactivity. The untrained person operates through stimulus and response. Something happens, and they react automatically, predictably, unconsciously. A critical comment triggers defensiveness. An unexpected obstacle provokes frustration. A pleasant experience creates attachment. These reactions seem inevitable, but they are merely habitual. Living from the center means maintaining space between stimulus and response. You feel the initial impulse of reaction, but instead of immediately acting on it, you observe it with awareness. This creates a crucial moment of freedom, the opportunity to respond consciously rather than react mechanically. Non-reactivity is not suppression or denial. You don't pretend not to feel anger, fear, desire, or any other human emotion. You simply refrain from being driven by these states automatically. You neither express them unconsciously nor repress them unhealthily. You acknowledge their presence without granting them authority over your actions. This capacity transforms relationships profoundly. Where others engage in predictable patterns of reaction and counter-reaction, you introduce a new element, conscious choice. This breaks cycles of conflict, misunderstanding, and escalation that characterize most human interaction. The third quality is authenticity. Most people live behind masks, presenting carefully constructed versions of themselves to different audiences. They speak and act according to expectations rather than truth. This performance requires tremendous energy and creates internal division. The gap between who you present yourself to be and who you know yourself to be. Living from the center means expressing what is genuinely true for you. not as impulsive emotional reaction, but as considered, clear communication. You speak honestly without using truth as a weapon. You express feelings without making others responsible for them. You maintain integrity, even when it would be convenient to compromise. Authenticity creates trust. People may not always agree with you, but they know where you stand. They sense your commitment to truth above convenience or advantage. This foundation allows for genuine connection and collaboration, rather than the surface-level engagement that characterizes most interactions. The fourth quality is appropriate boundary. The untrained person oscillates between rigid defense and complete vulnerability, between walling others out and giving themselves away. Both extremes create suffering and prevent genuine connection. Living from the center means establishing boundaries that are neither walls nor absences, more like permeable membranes that allow selective engagement. You recognize what is yours to carry and what belongs to others. You take responsibility for your actions, emotions, and choices, without assuming responsibility for everyone else's. You offer help without becoming enmeshed. You show compassion without absorbing others' pain as your own. This quality transforms helping relationships, whether as parent, friend, partner, or professional. You serve more effectively by maintaining appropriate boundary. You avoid both cold detachment and draining over-involvement. You remain present with others' suffering without becoming lost in it. The fifth quality is resilience. Life inevitably brings challenges, loss, failure, illness, disappointment. The untrained person is devastated by these experiences, requiring long recovery from even minor setbacks. Living from the center means developing the capacity to bend without breaking, to be moved without being uprooted, to feel pain without becoming defined by suffering. This resilience comes not from hardening yourself, but from recognizing that your essential nature remains untouched even by significant difficulty. Events may affect your circumstances, your body, your emotions, but they cannot reach the center of awareness that witnesses all experience. This understanding creates a profound form of security, not dependent on external conditions. When others are overwhelmed by challenge, you maintain perspective. When circumstances appear disastrous, you recognize their impermanence. When emotional storms arise, you allow their movement without being swept away by their force. This capacity serves not only you, but everyone in your sphere of influence. The sixth quality is creative response. Most people approach problems with fixed strategies based on past experience or received wisdom. When these fail, they simply try harder in the same direction, or give up entirely. Living from the center means engaging challenges with fresh perception, responding to what is actually happening rather than what you expect or fear might happen. This creative responsiveness flows naturally from presence. When you are fully attentive to reality as it is, not as you wish or fear it to be, innovative solutions arise spontaneously. You see possibilities invisible to the distracted or predetermined mind. You access intuitive knowing beyond logical analysis alone. Obstacles become opportunities. Constraints become creative catalysts. Problems become portals to new understanding. This is not positive thinking or wishful optimism, but the natural creativity that emerges when perception is clear and attention is unified. The seventh quality is effortless effort. The untrained person lives in constant strain, either over-efforting from anxiety or underperforming from resistance. Both create inefficiency and exhaustion. Living from the center means finding the middle path of appropriate action, doing precisely what is needed,
neither more nor less, with full engagement but minimal tension. Ancient wisdom traditions call this non-doing or actionless action, not the absence of activity, but the absence of the egoic doer, who creates friction through attachment to outcome, fear of failure, or need for recognition. Actions flow from clear seeing rather than striving, from response to necessity rather than reaction to pressure.
This quality transforms work from burden to expression. Tasks are completed more effectively with less expenditure of energy. Productivity increases while stress decreases. Results improve as attachment to them diminishes. This seeming paradox resolves in direct experience. The less you struggle, the more you accomplish. These 7 qualities: presence, non-reactivity, authenticity, appropriate boundary, resilience, creative response, and effortless effort naturally emerge through the practices of inner mastery. They cannot be artificially adopted or intellectually understood. They must be embodied through direct experience and consistent practice. As these qualities develop, your impact on the world changes without deliberate effort. You become a center of stillness amid chaos, clarity amid confusion, compassion amid conflict. Others are affected by your presence before you've said a word or taken any action. The quality of your being communicates more powerfully than any technique or strategy. Consider how differently you approach challenging interactions when living from the center. Someone speaks harshly or critically. Instead of immediate defense or counter-attack, you feel the initial reaction in your body, perhaps tightness in the chest or heat in the face. You breathe, you observe the thoughts that arise without believing or resisting them. Then you respond from clarity rather than reaction. This response might be firm boundary setting, gentle inquiry, compassionate acknowledgement, or strategic silence, not determined by habitual patterns, but by what the situation actually requires. The other person may continue their reactivity, but you refuse to join the dance of unconscious pattern. Your centered presence offers an invitation to greater awareness, whether accepted in the moment or not. Or consider how decisions change when made from the center rather than the periphery of your being. When caught in reactivity, decisions are driven by fear, greed, or the need for approval, even when disguised as rational analysis. When centered, decisions arise from clear perception of reality and alignment with deeper values. The mind serves wisdom rather than fear, discernment rather than desire. Even ordinary activities transform when engaged from the center. Eating becomes not mindless consumption, but conscious nourishment. Movement becomes not mere transportation, but embodied presence. Conversation becomes not information exchange, but genuine communion. Rest becomes not collapse from exhaustion, but conscious renewal. The greatest misconception about living from the center is that it requires withdrawal from ordinary life, retreating to mountains, adopting ascetic practices, or abandoning normal responsibilities. The truth is precisely opposite. This way of being fully engages with life while remaining unentangled by its dramas. It participates completely while maintaining the perspective of the witnessing awareness. The marketplace, the family home, the workplace, the public arena, these are your temples of practice. The interactions that trigger reactivity, the challenges that provoke anxiety, the conflicts that generate stress. These are your teachers of wisdom. Nothing needs to change externally for transformation to occur internally. In fact, it is within the very conditions you might wish to escape that the greatest growth becomes possible. This understanding liberates you from waiting for perfect circumstances. You need not quit your job, end your relationship, move to a new location, or achieve some special state before living from your center. The invitation is to begin now, exactly where you are, with whatever situation presents itself. The present moment, however challenging, contains everything needed for awakening. Most spiritual traditions emphasize this truth. Enlightenment is not an escape from reality, but a complete immersion in it. Not transcendence of ordinary experience, but transformation in relationship to it. Not achieving some extraordinary state, but recognizing the extraordinary nature of every ordinary moment when perceived with clarity. The ancient masters taught through direct pointing rather than complex theory. When asked about the nature of enlightenment, one replied by raising his hand. Another answered by drinking tea with complete attention. Another responded by continuing to sweep the temple floor. These were not evasions but demonstrations on this, showing that awakened awareness operates within ordinary activities, not separate from them. You have experienced moments of this centered awareness throughout your life, though you may not have recognized their significance. Times of complete absorption in activity, when the sense of separate self temporarily dissolved. Moments of crisis when unusual clarity suddenly emerged. Experiences in nature when boundaries between inner and outer seem to vanish. These glimpses reveal what is possible as an ongoing reality rather than occasional experience. The path to making this state more continuous begins with recognition when it naturally occurs. Notice the quality of those moments when you are naturally present, responsive rather than reactive, authentic rather than performative. Feel the distinctive signature of centered awareness. The spaciousness, the clarity, the quiet aliveness. This recognition creates a reference point for practice. Then cultivate conditions that support this awareness. The body calm but energized. The breath deep and rhythmic. Attention unified rather than fragmented. Thoughts witnessed rather than identified with emotions. Acknowledged rather than suppressed or indulged. These conditions can be established briefly, many times throughout the day, creating islands of presence within the stream of activity. With practice, these islands connect. Presence extends from formal meditation into daily life. The gap between theory and application narrows. What began as deliberate effort becomes natural expression. The center of gravity shifts from conditioned personality to essential nature, from reactivity to responsiveness, from disturbance to peace. This shift does not happen overnight or through dramatic breakthrough alone. It occurs through consistent practice and countless small awakenings. Each time you notice you've been caught in reaction and return to presence, you strengthen this capacity. Each time you choose conscious response over automatic reaction, you deepen this foundation. Each time you remain undisturbed amid triggering circumstances, you express this realization. The greatest gift you can offer the world is your centered presence. Not your achievements, possessions, or knowledge, but the quality of being that emerges when you live from the unchanging core rather than the changing periphery of your nature. This gift cannot be given directly, but only offered through example, through the simple fact of how you move through the world. When you remain undisturbed by what disturbs others, you demonstrate a different possibility. When you respond with clarity, where others react with confusion, you reveal another way of being. When you maintain peace amid conflict, you offer hope that transcends circumstance. Your very existence becomes teaching more powerful than any words. This does not mean becoming passive in the face of injustice or detached from the suffering of others.
Quite the opposite. Action taken from centered awareness has greater impact than reaction born of disturbance. Words spoken from clarity carry more weight than those arising from agitation. Even confrontation, when necessary, becomes more effective when coming from steadiness rather than reactivity.
The world does not need more disturbed people fighting against disturbance. It needs individuals who have found the center within themselves and operate from that foundation. Not perfect beings without flaws or challenges, but practicing humans committed to awareness rather than automaticity, presence rather than pattern, wisdom rather than reaction. You have this capacity. It is your birthright as a conscious being. Not something to be attained through heroic effort, but recognized through patient attention. Not a distant goal, but an ever-present reality waiting to be acknowledged. Not a special state reserved for the few, but the natural condition available to all who seriously pursue it. Begin now. Not when circumstances improve or when you feel ready, but in this very moment with whatever is present. Notice where attention has gone. Observe the thoughts moving through awareness. Feel sensations in the body. Then gently return to center minus to the space of witnessing from which all experience is perceived, but by which no experience is defined. From this center, engage life fully. Relationships, work, creativity, service minus all become expressions of the same fundamental awareness, rather than separate compartments requiring different versions of yourself. Unity replaces fragmentation, integrity replaces division, authenticity replaces performance. Remember that you never truly leave the center. You only forget it temporarily, becoming identified with thoughts, emotions, circumstances, mistaking the content of experience for your essential nature. Practice is simply remembering what has never actually been lost, returning to what has never really been absent. The paradox dissolves in direct experience. You are both the changing phenomena of body, thought, and emotion, and the unchanging awareness that perceives them. Both the wave on the surface and the depths of the ocean. Both the individual expression and the universal consciousness. Not either or but both. And from this understanding true freedom emerges, not freedom from circumstances but freedom within circumstances. Not absence of challenge but transformation in relationship to challenge. Not escape from human experience, but complete immersion in its depths and heights with unwavering presence. This is the promise and the invitation to live from the center rather than the periphery, from essence rather than appearance, from being rather than doing. Not someday in some perfect future, but now in this imperfect moment, with these particular circumstances exactly as they are. The highest form of power is to remain undisturbed by what disturbs others. This capacity already exists within you. The practices reveal it, challenges strengthen it, life itself continually invites its expression. The choice to accept this invitation again and again, moment by moment, transforms not only your experience, but your impact on everything and everyone you touch. Begin where you are. Start with what is before you. Take the next conscious breath. Make the next aware choice. Speak the next authentic word. Through these seemingly small acts, the greatest transformation unfolds. Not through grand gestures or dramatic declarations, but through the quiet revolution of remaining present when presence is most challenging, centered when centeredness seems most impossible. This is your path. This is your practice. This is your gift to a world desperately in need of undisturbed minds and unshakable presence. Not perfect, not complete, not finished, but committed to waking up in each moment, to choosing consciousness over conditioning, to living from the center rather than the edge of your being. The power is already yours, the wisdom already present, the capacity already developed. Recognition reveals what effort could never create. Presence unveils what seeking could never find. This moment contains everything needed for awakening. Ines is exactly as you are.